Capuchin Thalir online programs. This is part of the Solanas KC Holistic Welfare Center, Viluppuram in India. We give motivational trainings and empowerment for religious and lay leaders, formators and formees, teachers and students, families, parents and children. We also give counseling to the individuals and the communities and the families. We conduct retreats and monthly recollections. Welcome to Solanas KC Holistic Welfare Center. Contact the Director, Nitya, YFM Cap. totalexcellencenow@gmail.com. Dear brothers and sisters, this week we are focusing on the need for the formators while they are dealing with the FORMEES. We'll be discussing in these days understanding the youth of today, being led by God's experience, pilgriming with the FORMEES, and after that we'll be listening to latent and manifest motives in the FORMEES and the self-care for the formators. Today, we are happy to welcome Fr.Jerry. Welcome, Fr.Jerry.
Dear friends, today is the third day of Fr.Jerry's talk. Yesterday, we were very much excited about his personal conviction with which he spoke, and many gave compliments to us through the mail. And as you know, Fr.Jerry doesn't have a mobile, no internet, no computer, no email. So he has to beg somebody and go to there. So he is in a room. First time he's touching the mobile, I think, a laptop. So he is not even touching that because he says, if they touch anything, something may happen. So I don't want to touch that one. So he really not even sits there. He remains standing and giving the 1 hour talk. We are really happy, privileged to have such a priest amidst us to give us this. Father, we are very happy to invite you. Today is the third day. Yesterday was the God experience leading us. Today is a marvelous theme, pilgriming with the FORMEES. We are not farming them, but we are pilgriming with them. All are searching. They are also searching. I am also searching. I have not found. They have not found. It's a constant search. We do not know. Probably they must have found, and still we are still searching. So this is a marvelous time. I don't want to take much time. Welcome Fr.Jerry for the third day. And Father Ben will be helping us how he is going to lead us into a group discussion towards the end. Father Ben, 1 minute.
Yes, Father.
Is there anything about the group discussion you will be doing today at the end of the talk after 1 hour?
Yeah, as per Fr.Jerry's direction, we will continue discussing.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yes,
so he is Pastor Ben here. Thank you, Father Ben. Welcome, Fr.Jerry. The stage is yours now.
Very much delighted and happy to be at your service today, the third day of my presentation. The first day, we looked at the scenario of the younger generation, both within the Catholic Church, also outside in the wider society at large. They are the challenges which they place before us, that we need to really listen to them before we put in our best and might for their reformation, transformation, and in the ministry of formation. That was the first day. And then yesterday, the second day, they focused on, in a way, on ourselves, whether we are being led by God's experience. We may be formators, but still standing in need of God's touch. We may be still standing in need of God's spark. We may be still standing in need of God's light. We may be still standing in need of God's go as such. And that was yesterday. Now the third day of my presentation, I'm putting them together and moving further. First day, younger generation and the youth. And the second day, you and I as formators, animators, motivators, and facilitators, I term them in a different way, but all put together, we are in the ministry of formation. Now this, the third day, we put them together, whether we can journey together, pilgrim together. As Father Nitya said it right now, whether we are searching together for God's vision and God's passion and God's mission in terms of how we can take up the participation, how we can make very creative contribution going with the current context of the day and the cosmos at large. So I invite you for this day, a very special day and a special focus. And the title is Pilgriming with the FORMEES. But you will see this one, which will be circulated to you at the end of this session. You will see that today I am following another creative methodology. And what is that one? As I put it over there, 10 top highlights. So that within 1 hour, I like to place before you for 10 top select highlights, top highlights, call it select highlights in terms of Ministry of Formation, while we are committing ourselves to pilgrim with the FORMEES. Before I set the ball rolling, I like to refer to a person. I mentioned the name, possibly my friends in India, the participants from India, or listeners in India, would immediately recollect the name. Others, I may have to give you a bit of introduction. But the person that I like to begin with today is known by name Jyoti Kumari. Jyoti Kumari. Jyoti. Jyoti means light. Kumari. Kumari. A youngster. She is only 15 years and studying 7th standard in the Indian educational system. The Ministries in the high schooling level. And coming from northern part of India, the state of Bihar, one of the backward states. India has got about 29 states and 7 union territories. Put together about 36, and Bihar will be one of the backward states. And she comes from there. And she's the eldest in the family, among the children. Her father went away to further north in India, and that is the state of Haryana. He's a kind of an auto rickshaw driver, but the point is he doesn't own a vehicle, so he's moved from state to state, and thereby got employed himself as an auto rickshaw driver. That last 2 years he was working. Now coming to the point, this January, that particular dad of Jyoti Kumari, auto rickshaw driver, met with an accident and got hospitalized. And he was alone there. He was working over there. Family is back in the state of Bihar, and he used to procure money out of his employment and thereby send that one for the livelihood of the family. But when he met with an accident, he was held up in the hospital. Nobody to take care of in the government, a simple hospital in the given locality. And Jyoti Kumari, breaking her studies, and she had to go over there, and that is about 1,400 kilometers. Went over there, and then what you call nursing a sick leave dad in the hospital after the accident, as I indicated little earlier. Month of March came. The coronavirus hit the nation of India, as also the other states all over. Now what happened? And the hospital started closing down. And the patients are asked to leave for their own homes and states whatnot. And this particular Jyoti Kumari and dad, they left alone, orphaned. And as far as India is concerned, the lockdown began on the 24th of March, this year 2020, because of the new coronavirus. But now look at the detail. Days passed by. No money whatsoever. Government gave a kind of a whatever special allowance for the poorest, and there was only 1,000 rupees. It will come over to about 15 to 20 US dollars, 15 plus US dollars, nothing. But anyhow, she got the father got it, and she bought a second-hand bicycle. Out of that money, half of that money, that means about 8 US dollars, bought a second-hand cycle, because no more they could go on in the state of Haryana, that is beyond the capital state of India, that is New Delhi. And this is Bihar down south in the northern part of the country of India. And then what I'm going to say, I'm sure you may find difficult to really even imagine, but that took place. On the 10th of May, the lockdown, March the 24th, carried on, but the going was rather tough and rough. On the 10th of May, this particular girl, Jyoti Kumari, cycling the second-hand ordinary bicycle and keeping the dad behind with the luggage, and then cycled and pedaled for 7 full days, and then covering about 1,400 kilometers, and then each day about 180 kilometers plus. And late at night, used to take some shelter in the petrol bunks on the wayside, and each day spending only 50 rupees, not even $1 for both of them. And then in course of time, on the 16th, when she arrived home, mother could not believe that her own daughter could come up to that level and form herself to that particular way of proceeding. And they were bringing the dad in a very, very second-hand, rather what we call old bicycle. See the way I'm going to connect and thereby to expand and explain the focus and the details of today, that is pilgriming with the FORMEES. And just make one or two meditation on that particular parable. And Jyoti Kumari, when I read it in the newspaper, it was not a simple news item covering a column in the newspaper or in the media, the journals and the magazines. And she became the talk of the town, so to say. Around the country of India, number of people made a reference to her. I myself was highly jolted, shaken up. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? And that was a challenge that she gave, only 15 years. I am more than 4 times of her age, and nowhere compared to her formation. When any critical situation happens, I do not know immediately what to do. I simply, what you call, go down and then come down, and then they may sit down, so to say. When she was up, she saw the future, and accordingly she moved ahead. And she would have certainly found pedaling 180 kilometers plus each day and every day, continuously. And the month of May is a summer season for the country of India. That's the context. That's the context. However, she grew up. In a way, got matured. And much more, she really developed herself and formed herself to an authentic human person, taking care of the sickly dad and also bringing along the load and much more reaching home so that the family can be reunited. The target is achieved, the mission accomplished. I tell you, my dear friends, the formation is nothing but this. We generally think formation is a kind of a dictation. That's my first point. Remember, I said 10 highlights, and this is the first highlight. Namely, many a time we think the formation is an onset time, whereas the formation is basically, firstly, fundamentally, and foundationally, the formation is a question time, a search time. So when the FORMEES come, we need to begin with them in terms of discovering the purpose or as I put it yesterday, the reason to live, reason to die. And that's a spirituality. Whereas you will agree with me when I go what I'm going to say. From the day number 1 onwards, so to say, in our years of formation, they bombard the formees with lots of data, details, lot of curriculum, and a kind of a content, and a kind of a sort of syllabus, which we like to cover, and then thereby to really what you call filling the heads of the formees, heads of the formees. And today we need to give that particular challenge. If we have to pilgrim with the formees, we need to invite them to raise the questions, and so that they start the searching, and we travel along searching, as Father Nithya put it in the introduction itself. And we need to allow them to raise questions, and we should not be giving answers before the questions are up. And they need to be given that particular space. And they should be asking us, okay, who is your founder or founders? They should be asking us, what is the meaning of this particular charism that you go by? And they should be asking us, and how come then you are living like this, or what is your interpretation of the charism and the constitution and the mind of your founder and the founders? They should be asking us. This is a big shift. I have gone through, and you are also gone through, the years of formation. And we know we have to accept. Namely, we will bombard with details and data. And there was no space given for their questions. And searching was rather missing. And we thought we are given enough and more. But that is rather overfed. Overfed. And Jyoti Kumari Sandon would have raised the question when she found that lockdown has been announced by the government of India, when the coronavirus is now going to come to an end or halted shortly. That is in the month of March, month of April. And she went to that particular search. And in the course of time, it occurred to her, and the answer came up, okay, somehow we have to reach home. The family has been united. A reason to live, a reason to die. And then with that particular limited allowance given by the local administration, buying a second hand by second. And then she had what I said yesterday, courage. Courage for what? To form ourselves. And then they really motivate and mobilize ourselves. And delight and dedicate ourselves, oneself. So highlight number 1, we need to make the years of formation as a question time rather than as an answer time. Number 2, now moving, I will place before you all the 10 highlights. At the end of that, there will be time, as we had it yesterday, for further clarification, further clearance, or much more, further description and definition, explanation and exploration. As I now talking to you at the back of your head, and check whether my points make any sense. In case you need any further exploration, and at your service at the end of my exposition of these 10 highlights. I move to the second one. Second one I touched upon yesterday, and especially during our interaction time. And what is that one? Formation has to be seen as a time inviting the formees to really develop their own well-informed, well-formed, well-transformed conscience. But immediately I'm going to add something. So we need to really invite the formees so that they can really take up the task of developing their own conscience as well-informed, well-formed and well-transformed, rather than replacing it on the part of the formators. If I check yourself and myself, to the extent that we are putting our participation in the Ministry of Formation, many a time, or most of the time, if not all the time, they are replacing the conscience of the foreigners. And we give the list of do's, and they give the list of don'ts. We give the norms and guidelines, and we give the restrictions and limitations, and they give the conditions. Everything is chopped out and worked out and imposed upon the foreigners, and they have no time to really shape and form and develop their own conscience. They become rather immature even when they finish their years of formation, because their conscience is rather childish, not childlike, childish, and they stand in need of higher ups to say what to do, what not to do. They don't really have that particular what we call quality, or they don't have that particular docility or facility to check in the very conscience, which if they have developed themselves, and that means they will know the conscience, as we said yesterday, will give us the inner voice, and the spirit will give us the particular inspiration, which we called yesterday inner voice. And they will find the soul code, as we explained yesterday, or they will have that inner freedom to move ahead. They don't need to get the instruction all the time till the end of their lifetime. And if you see in your communities, as I also see in my communities, and people are over 50, 60 seniors, they still expect the instructions to come from above. That means that they have not developed their conscience, but they cannot find fault with them. And those who are involved in the ministry of formation, and they started replacing their formation rather than facilitating the development of their own, of the consciences on the part of the formees by themselves, so that they also will come of age. They will attain certain maturity in terms of their own personality, so that the formation really gives them that particular orientation for life. We have finished the second one, we move on to the third one. The third highlight, very interesting one. Very possibly would have not come across this one, so to say. In case you have come across what I am going to give as the third highlight, better to recollect and recapture and much more re-challenge, so that in the process of pilgriming the formees, we should really go by the invitation, the inspiration of the highlight number 3. What is that one? I will read out that one to you because I have drafted it so well that it speaks well to you immediately. We need to pilgrim with the formees by supplying the formees with a variety of choices. Pilgriming with the formees by supplying the formees with a variety of choices for their way of life, for their future, making it clear to them the vocation is not only to join the congregation, the vocation is not only to join the diocese, the vocation is not only to become a reverend father, reverend sister, reverend brother, or reverend priest. Vocation is coming from God, and God is very generous. God is very magnanimous, and the Catholic Church also equally generous in offering us, supplying us with the varieties of choices, options, alternatives, ways and means, and the paths and roads for our pilgriming and journey and traveling. In the process, they should be even ready to take the road that is less traveled by. I am now quoting the American English poet Robert Frost. Roads were many. He refers to 2 roads. And I took the road that was less traveled by. And that made all the difference, All the difference. And the third highlight is this one. Namely, we need to supply the formees with a variety of choices of life. I'm going to give some of them so that it doesn't sound only as a concept or a theory, but also gives a certain practical and possible and feasible and pragmatic ways and means of life. I just give you about 6 or 7 or 8 as I could place before you to the extent the time permits. Okay, first one is to become a religious. Okay, consecrated vow in your or in my congregation. The second choice is quite different. To become a religious in another congregation. And especially as the initial stage formators, as an aspirant or postulant, pre-novitiate or novitiate or a minor seminary or juniorate, and in the particular first stage of aspirancy, postulancy, whatnot, and the initial stage of formation, the formator should not think and should not consider that candidate has come and the formee has come just for his or her congregation. That is diverting the candidate from the call of the Lord. And they should impose our own congregation over the forms. And we should say, you can become a religious. For example, I talk about myself. You can become a Jesuit. The second one, in case your personal vocation, which you understand in the court of your conscience, namely that you are called for a ministry that is not being done by the Society of Jesus, the Jesuit order, I should help the person to decide for another congregation. I cannot say you have got to be Jesuit first and you have to travel by it. I should have that particular what you call humility, and if not that particular sincerity, and thereby helping and pilgriming with a forming concern, so that he or she can find his own, her own way of life for future. Church by means. And there's a possibilities. For example, I can tell you practical. Couple of years ago, I came across a youngster from one of my previous parishes. Basically, I was a pastor, about 7 or 8 parishes I served. One of my what you call parishioners' family, a young fellow came, who whom I baptized years back, decades back. But anyway, he has come. He came over and said, I'm called, I feel like, and then his vocation is to serve the sickly, and even those who are at the terminally ill. And when he approached that one, at that time I told him, namely the Jesuit Society as such does not have that hospital ministry. And there are some congregations, and there are some brothers' congregations which are going for the hospital medical ministry. So I have to say that's a choice. That means I have to, and you have to expose as formators the variety of choices of life, and so that each one will choose. On the third one, the person who has joined the congregation, which is rather active and apostolic. Most of our congregations are active and apostolic ones, but sometimes it can happen. The candidate of the forming who have come over there finds himself rather unfit for the apostolic institute. There she or he is not finding fault with the institute, but this particular institute is meant for apostolic ministries, whereas she feels or he feels that she or he has been called for contemplative life, a monastic life. He or she likes to spend time before the tabernacle, pray, and offer the whole day in penance, in prayer, in work for God's mission. There's a special call. So that we may also at the time, and they really help the candidate or the forming, so that they will move over to a monastery, a contemplative institute, so that they can make use of their life quite meaningfully and purposely, because all for God's mission. Since you belong to, or I belong to, apostolic branch, I cannot say that you have to fall in line and you also come along and you are joining the Jesuit Society, be a Jesuit. No, no, no. You be what you are called to be. All right? Or sometimes in the process of the early stage of formation, they may even come to that particular decision. And they may say, well, I like to be what we call it, I like to lead a single life. I don't want to become a priest. I don't want to become a brother. I don't want to even become a sister. I don't want to be a bold and professed. I don't want to live in a community. I know I have got certain charisma. I know I have got certain stamina. I know I have got certain spark within me. Even as a single person, I can do a lot. Why not? Why not? And we need to really be grateful to God on occasion for giving that particular charisma, that particular stamina to that particular boy or the girl who may be only in their early 20s, if not even 20. But they have got certain clarity of the radicality of their personality or for God's mission. And we should not distract them. Why? We need to pilgrim along with their aspiration. They are to travel along with their own orientation. And we need to really journey with their direction. And their direction, their orientation, their aspiration, their expectation may or may not fit with us, with ours. And we need to be grateful to God. After all, one more person, he or she doesn't join our congregation, but likes to live a single life, thereby prove the matter. On another last one, I don't want to go on, but there are many. Another one, the person would have joined that congregation, but the person wants to be a diocesan priest. Why? And the person wants to serve the remote villages or the parishes. And that particular person has got the pastoral orientation. Don't force the person to join the congregation and put him in a school for teaching. That's a disservice done to the candidate. And his life is in a way wasted, in a way abused, instead of being used, instead of being good use. I have got somebody like this. I don't know whether he is listening to me. I am now talking. And he was, the person is a kind of a Jesuit product. And he studied in our schools and colleges. Eventually, he got even MPhil in the college, but he didn't join the Jesuit order. And he even got an employment to teach in the Jesuit school with his MPhil and MEd. And also registered his name for doctoral research. Look at the detail. He is still doing doctorate on my books. He was rather taken up by my books and so on. That's a different story. But he was rather taken up and he is doing his doctoral studies research in the University of Tiruchirappalli in Tamil Nadu. Tiruchirappalli in Tamil Nadu University, secular university, PhD on me. And then, but he remained unmarried. He was coming somewhere close to 27, 28. And at that time he called on me. Then he said, I'm thinking of not getting married, but I like to become a priest. Naturally, I thought, I have to be honest enough. Since he was trained in the Jesuit institutions and coming from a very poor family, he was rather sponsored by the Jesuit community. And they gave a lot of scholarship in the schools and colleges, gave him employment, and they gave him a handsome salary, because of which he even got his sisters getting married. So natural on my part, that I expected that he will join the Jesuit order. Though I did not say it, I expected that to come from him. But I got a shock of my life, but a pleasant shock. A pleasant shock. He told me, I am not going to become a Jesuit. I don't intend to belong to the Society of Jesus. I said, why? Though I did not have, a green face. I said, okay, fine. But let me know your reason. He gave this reason. Since I had done MAD, and since he had finished MPhil, since I taught in the Jesuit schools and colleges, the schools, he taught in the schools, and since I am now already a doctoral student, I know what the Society of Jesus, in case I join, will do with me. They will put me in a college. Now they gave me an employment to teach in the school. But in course of time, they will put me in the college. Then got stuck. Whereas I want to go to periphery. Then he quoted Pope Francis. With all my education, let me serve in a very simple way. Even in a parish. Okay, what in the knowledge I got, I will somehow depart to the neediest. But that I have to work out and chalk out a methodology. But I want to belong to a diocese. I negotiated with the diocesan, the bishop of diocese. I can mention the name. And it is Bishop Singarayan, the diocese of Salem. And I told him that we would be happy to take him. But he wants to become what they call diocesan. Though his age is already 27, 28, kindly consider whether he could be admitted into a seminary. So that's a way. And we need to think, that's my third point, supply the formulas with a variety of choices of life, among which they will choose, and that pertains to, and that matches with, that corresponds to their orientation, motivation, in terms of direction and dedication for God's mission. Immediately from the third, I move to highlight number four. What is that one? We have to pilgrim with their formulas by helping them, facilitating them to go through a spirit-filled discernment. Number 4, discernment. So why? In the third we said, namely that a variety of options are given, choices are given, means of life means of life are being explained. And then now the form is going by one's own mindset, one's own understanding, interpretation of the call of God or vocation. Each one is called, as we said yesterday, led by God's experience in big or small way, in a simple or spectacular way. Each one has got some experience. Yesterday I still remember, and a couple of participants asked me on this question, asked me this question. Namely, everybody comes with some good intention. Everybody has got certain experience, and everybody has got some way of proceeding. Now during the formation period, and especially in the early stage of formation, going by the highlight number 4, the formators have to travel and pilgrim with the formulas by animating the formulas to go through a spirit-filled discernment. Pope Francis, when he writes the post-synodal exhortation, and that is on youth, that is Christus Vivit, he has got a chapter precisely on this one, discernment, even for the gentle youth. Now much more for youths who are entering our formation houses. And what is discernment? Many a definition are available, but I like to hit the point exactly. Hit the point exactly. And what I'm going to share is going to be a practical way of going in terms of discernment. Many people will say discernment is a prayerful consideration to come to know what is good, what is bad. Not at all. This is not discernment. This is not discernment. Check my definition. To distinguish good and bad, a simple common sense is enough. To differentiate between light and darkness, simple common sense is suffice. Discernment is discernment. It's a prayerful and spiritual process by which the person selects what is more good, what is more challenging, what is more fruitful, and what will give more glory to God. 4. And the highlight number 4, these are the 4 details. What is more good? You know, the highlight number 3, everything's good. To become a priest, good. Dyson priest, good. Religious sister, good. Married, good. Remain single, good. Join a contemplative order, good. So everything is a good. The list of goods, Goods, goods. And the discernment is a discernment. Prayerfully and spiritually, the person concerned, facilitated by that formator who is traveling and pilgriming along with the FORMEES to select and elect the more good among the many goods. For example, my father and my mother, they would never use the word discernment. But they thought getting married is more good than becoming a religious. Thank God they got married so that I became the fruit of the womb of my mother. And in this way also, your participants, and you are also not dropped from heaven. And each and every one of us are born of a woman who got married to a man through the sacrament of marriage, which also good. What I'm going to say may be a little shocking, but certainly it is nothing but matter of fact. And what is that one? Marriage is a sacrament. One of the 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church, as per the Catechism and the theology, as per the way of life in the Catholic Church. Whereas a religious life, consecrated life, is not a sacrament. Ordained life is a sacrament. Holy priesthood, holy orders. There are 4 lakhs, that 4 lakhs and 10,000. That means 0.41 million priests in the Catholic Church. Not even 1 million. 0.41 million. Whereas there are 0.97 million are consecrated people, as brothers and sisters and whatnot. But the 9.97 million who have taken vows, who have consecrated their life for God's mission, have taken the vow of poverty, chastity, obedience. But unfortunately, the Catholic Church has not considered up to now to make the consecrated life as one of the sacraments. Whereas a marriage is a sacrament. So then when I have helped in certain discernment, and when they want to get married, I said, you don't need to feel bad about it. That's the way we have to be honest. And you are moving from a non-sacrament to sacrament. From the religious life to married life, sacrament. But ultimately, whether this or that, all for God's mission. And the discernment is to select and elect more good, which is more good for me. And second one is more challenging, the challenging way of life and ministry. And the third one is more fruitful for the people, especially for the poorest. If all the 3 put together, then the 4th one comes that will give more glory to God. Discernment is a discernment. It's a spirit-filled process to select and elect. More good for me, more challenging in terms of ministry, more fruitful in terms of people, especially the least and the last, and more glory in terms of God. Highlight number 4 is over. We move to highlight number 5. Highlight number 5. And what's that one? And that is by animating the by reading not only the signs of the time, but also the signs of the space. Something very special. If you check your chapters and discussions and deliberations in your gatherings, either at the province level or in the general international level, many times we only use the first one. We need to read the signs of the time. It's found in chapter number 12, Gospel of Luke. Jesus says, how come you read the clouds? How come you read the skies? How come you say the direction of the breeze indicates the rains would come, and they do come? Jesus uses them. You read the clouds, you read the skies, you read the directions of the breeze, and you foresay rains are going to come. They do come. See the next sentence. You hypocrites. I'm not looking at you. You hypocrites. You read the clouds and skies, but you have not read the signs of the time. But 2000 years ago, Jesus referred to only to signs of the time. Today, sociologists or social scientists also refer to another one, signs of the space, especially applicable to international congregations. Why? Time is the same, space is different. For example, you may be a Salesian, sister or a brother or a priest, Salesian. But Salesians, in America, is different from Salesians in Africa. Space is different. And the Salesians of Africa should not xerox the way of life of the Salesians in the United States of America. They should not photocopy the way of life of the Salesians in Australia. America, United States on the other side, whether there is Mexico, whether it's Brazil, whether that is Cuba, or whether that is Canada, or whether that is Argentina. That's right. Okay, Salesians are there. I'm giving an example. Okay, there are Salesians are there, Carmelites are there. Call them anything. But signs of the time is the same, 2020. So internationally, the time is the same, 2020, the year 2020. And today, the September the 16th is common to all, for all members in all the continents, all over the world. But space is different. I should not follow the way of life of American Jews. Their context is different. So also the FORMEES should be given this orientation. And even if you and I got trained and formed in abroad, in outside the country of India, when we come here and when we are involved in the ministry of formation, and we should not be Americanized or Europeanized. We need to Indianize when you come to India. If you are working on functioning and ministering in the country of any one of the countries of the continent of Africa, you need to Africanize. You are working in East Timor or Malaysia, Singapore, Sri Lanka. Okay, Asianize, Malaysianize. Very important. And thereby you pilgrim, because they are people of the soil. And you might have come from outside or whatnot, or at least trained and formed outside. But in the Ministry of Formation demands, they don't prepare them for outside ministries to begin with. It can come in course of time as a part of their missionary future. But now we need to have roots here. And they need to have contextualized and then contemporized. And they need to be really concretized in their own given time and space. And the issues and the problems and the burning concerns at the time can be one and the same. For example, COVID. But the space may be different. For example, COVID-19 is affecting India, as I quoted Jyoti Kumari, in terms of migrants who moved from their home state to faraway state for their own livelihood. And the migration has taken place in big way. Big way. At least about 100 millions of Indians are migrants within the country. They are migrating from north and south to east and west for their livelihood. COVID-19, time is the same, issue is the same. But the manifestation in terms of the space is quite different. And we need to pilgrim the FORMEES, helping them to read not only the signs of the time, but also the signs of the space. That takes me to the next one, that is sixth one, by encouraging FORMEES to learn from mistakes, to learn from wrongs, to learn from risks, And this what we call six one learning. Why this is very important? This needs a little what we call change of our mindset as a formators in the ministry of formation. And what is that one? We like to see the formists don't make any mistake. But I tell you, educationists will say we learn more from mistakes. Mistakes form us. Successes only inform us. Success will tell how to go about inform us. But the failures, mistakes, wrongs, risks, and they will form us. We need to learn from the mistakes that we are committing. Therefore, from today onward, so to say, then in case you are involved in the ministry of formation, don't put the formists down when they make mistakes, but encourage them and thereby pilgrim with them so that they know how to get up and walk up. Okay, they have fallen down and we should not at that time admonish in such a way they may not pick up their courage to get up. Whereas we need to encourage them. Then okay, you've fallen down in whatever way, whatever points of view. But the points have fallen down. That is not the end of the story. We need to really help them so that they will get up and walk up. I have got some examples, but I don't want to take any further time on this one because it's a rather straight one and certainly going by your own experiences. You will understand what I'm saying. Therefore, we should not put down our formists and candidates when they make mistakes, big or small. When they make encounter failures, big or small. But we need to tell them, learn from mistakes, learn from failures. And that's also formation. We are forming them in such a way, ups and downs of life are taken with a certain equal disposition for the progression of their very life goal. Somebody said it, making mistake, look at the sentence, making mistake is not mistake. But refusing to learn from mistake is the mistake. I repeat, making mistake is not mistake. But refusing to learn from mistake is the mistake. That is the biggest and the greatest mistake. Good. We move on to number 7. Very, very important one. Possibly you would have heard this one some other occasions. But I cannot finish my list without highlighting that one as one of the 10 top highlights of today. Yesterday and day before yesterday went by certain parts, 4 parts, 5 parts. Whereas today I'm placing before you 10 highlights and we have come to the 7th one already. And the 7th one says, by inventing formists to become more and more human, rather than just becoming more and more priestly, more and more consecrated. And if you check your own years of formation, as I like to check the years of my formation, when I went through the formation years, I went through solid about 13 years, 13 years of formation, from my pre-novitiate till my ordination, 13 years. But most of the time, most of my formators, and I am not finding fault with them. At the same time, I cannot deny the fact. They wanted to see that I become more and more Jesuit, more and more Ignatian, more and more priestly, so to say. I'm moving toward the sacramental ordination, which will come at the end of the years of formation. And they're more and more committed to the vows of obedience, chastity, poverty. All good, nothing wrong, nothing wrong, nothing wrong. But something wrong when it has not, the years of formation have not made you and made me to become more and more human. The humanness lacking. Humanity is missed. And there may be a very wonderful and spectacular priest preaching eloquently and singing solemnly. and galvanizing the listeners. But basically the person may be missing humanity. Or that particular sister may be a good teacher, and head teacher, principal, managing the show very wonderfully and very efficiently. But humanity is missing. One example. If somebody wishes you good morning, you should respond equally good morning. You cannot simply walk away only nodding your head. There's a complex. Humanity is missing. It's a simple example. Simplest example. But very typical example. Check. And especially those are our domestic workers, or those who are working under us, subordinates, or they may be even students. There's a time we need to take a time to look at, and then with a smile say good morning, good morning, good morning, or good evening, good evening. All the last. When these simple things are missing, they become the indicators of something big that is missing, and that is called humanity. As Saint Irenaeus says, namely, become more and more human, they become more and more divine. And the totality of the divinity resting upon the fullness of humanity. And we need to pilgrim with our forms in shaping them, molding them, that they become more human before they become more sisterly, brotherly, or that way priestly in terms of our consecrated life and ordained life. Takes me to the 8th highlight. By motivating in terms of both reformation and transformation. So formation has got two, what we call it, spheres to go by. We use the word formation, but that is only what we call it put together. One side of the coin is called reformation. Other side of the coin is called transformation. Here I like to quote Jesus' word. Chapter number 5, verse number 13, Gospel according to Saint Matthew. Matthew chapter 5, verse number 13. You are the salt of the earth. If the salt itself has lost the saltiness, it will be thrown out and trampled upon. It will be of no use whatsoever. We know the qualities of salt, but as per the chemists, the chemistry specialists, and that particular commodity called sodium chloride, that is called salt in common usage, has got a special quality, and the quality is nothing but this one. Namely, it has a medicinal value, healing effect, a curing effect. It's a medicine. No medicine can be manufactured without sodium chloride. Sodium chloride, the salt is the basic medicine. At least a bit of it, and should be a pinch of it, should be there in all the production of medicine. I worked about 23 years in the villages. I saw for myself, people may not have any medicine because they have to at least run 3 to 5 kilometers to meet the doctor or the basic health center. But they will immediately apply salt. Any injury, even snake bite, anything, salt. Now comes a point. Formation is a reformation. That means whatever has to be cured. So when we now see the pilgrim, what we call FORMEES, and they will certainly have certain deformation, certain casuistic, individualistic, consumeristic. And since, as I said day yesterday, they are coming from the throwaway culture. They are of what we call screen generation. And they are all digital generation. And they may be upset with the media. And because they are used mobile and so on from their young age, right from their very, very child age. Now suddenly we say nothing can be done. Okay, there is nothing wrong in making them make a shift for the formation purpose. But In the process, when we noticed, they have got something of this type. That is, they have become they are caught up with consumerism, classism, careerism, communalism, etc., etc., etc. And they have to be corrected, amended, challenged, and reformed. Reformed. And we need to become salt. And we need to cure. And we are not going to get into our, what we call it, into our formation houses and people who are next only to Archangel Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael. They are also coming from the milieu of today. They have got both lights and shadows. Shadows, reformation. And the lights, transformation. For example, yesterday, my session. We need to really form them, transform them. They become agents of truth. And they become messengers of love for the unloved. And they become the animators in terms of having a responsible freedom and also allowing others to live with the same. Reformation plus transformation is equal to formation. Reformation being a salt, transformation being a light. Put together, we really become, as I quoted earlier, more human, more divine. In the process, more religious, more ordained, more fit to be consecrated and bound, or not. It takes me to the next one, ninth one. Ninth is following from the eighth one. Therefore, that will be easy to refer to, so that in another couple of minutes I will finish my presentation. I began exactly about 1 hour before, because I took up my presentation only around about 6, 12, 13. Now I am coming around the same time, 1 hour. Afterwards, I am at your service for any further clarification, explanation. And afterwards, if there is a time, we will go for group discussion. But before group discussion, in case we have it, but as we had it yesterday fruitfully, we will have a group, what we call, we will have a clarification moments, so that what I missed, I be able to explain, and what you want to gather further, I am at your service. Ninth one. Look at the ninth one. The formation is not only preparing people and promoting their vocation, but also challenging them, also criticizing them in a very, very fraternal way, in a very brotherly and sisterly way. Because there is now a temptation. Since we get a few entering into our formation houses, there's a temptation, I call it a temptation, to seek, to allow people to go through the years of formation without any challenging. On the first day, they were studying, and one of them even asked me, namely that we need to really challenge them, but they are not ready for correction. But now I am putting the ball in, putting the point to ourselves, namely, I need to be credible, so that I have the guts and the courage to challenge others. Even you and I are rather hesitant and lenient, then we need to really challenge, and that means that we are not authentic enough, genuine enough, credible enough. As I put it yesterday, we are not led by God's experience, and we are not led by the God's light, and we are not led by the inner voice. Then we have certain credibility, authenticity, sincerity, honesty, and transparency on our part. When we admonish and challenge, and when as a part of our salt side of the formation, the formation will be grateful to us, because at the time we become like their mother, their father, their parents, who need to admonish. So it's not simply allowing anything, everything. That is called in the field of formation benefit of doubt. Benefit of doubt. They doubt their vocation. and make it as a benefit of them, saying in course of time they will be okay. They will be okay. So I will promote them to the next stage of formation. It's up to the formators of the highest level of formation to take care of. No, you have missed the point. You have missed the mark. I have missed the point. No, I need to also challenge them. In the process, I need to really amend with them and thereby promote them so that they will have life in abundance. That is chapter number 10, Gospel of St. John, verse number 10. 10, John's Gospel. When Jesus says, I have come to give life and life in abundance. When you want to give life in abundance, we need to do away with the darkness. In the words of St. Pope John Paul II, there's a culture of darkness today. And we need to also take that particular task while pilgriming with the forms. I'm concluding the 10th point. And 10th point, I'm going to only hit the point, hit the highlights. And that is 3 points. As a forming, one has to grow. Each one of us has to grow. Each one of us has to grow in credibility. I already said it. In cordiality, so that I pilgrim warmly. And creativity. These are the special 3 qualities or special 3 blessings that we need to really have. When we need to really put on the 10th one. You are putting the 9th one, please. Highlight number 10th one. The highlight 10th one. Namely the qualities, skills and graces needed on. Namely that we need to become, we grow in credibility with oneself, in oneself, within oneself. And cordiality with the FORMEES, pilgriming with them, searching with them, journeying with them. Put together creativity in terms of God's mission. What more I can offer to the Lord at the given time and space. I end my presentation, though there are 1 or 2 points which I can explain in course of time, because I want to finish now so that there's enough time for clarification. And end it here with the words of Jesus. You are the salt of the earth. Verse number 13, chapter 5, Gospel of Matthew. You are the light of the earth and you are light of the world. I wish and hope and pray that each and every one of us, all the friends who are participating in this particular session, and all those who are listening to me, that each one of us, whether we are formators or otherwise, that we will emerge more and more human, more and more divine, more and more salt, more and more light, all for God's mission. Thank you so much.